Texas football heads into the bye week with a much-needed break. The men's basketball team prepares for the regular season with Texas tip-off tonight, and a wacky Week 7 brought college football several upsets this past weekend. All this and more on College Crossfire.
I guess we'll get into it.
Always enthusiastic, unbelievable, hard-nosed.
All right, let me explain why Aaron Judge is getting it. You can boo me all you want.
I knew Texas was going to win, and then one of the Texas team was going to lose.
Cannon. I don't like the cannon.
Wait, you don't like the cannon? All right, I'm done.
This is all chaos.
Chaos indeed. It's another episode of College Crossfire. Thank you for being here with us tonight. I'm your host, Jonathan Polasek. I want to give a quick shout out to former host Mark T. Skull Jr. He's watching this show with us tonight. We've got a lot to discuss, but before we do, let's meet our panel, starting with Zach Leff. Zach, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited to be back on the show and hopefully win this time.
Hopefully get another win. Get another win. We've got TSTV newcomer Drew Jacob. Drew, how you doing?
I'm doing good, and Coach Herman, I hope you're watching because I'm going to show you it's not that hard to go 0-1, to go 1-0.
Winning is hard. Let's be real. And then our returning champion, Sean Mapes. He likes to bat third. Not a fan of batting leadoff, but here he is regardless.
No, and I hope my quest for back-to-back goes a little bit better than the Astros are going right now.
Oh, hey,
Early start.
It's rough, but they're making the comeback. So glad to have you all on tonight. So let's just jump right on in. Texas football just keeps on finding a way to win. After losing quarterback Sam Ehlinger to a shoulder injury against Baylor this past Saturday, the Longhorns were able to do just enough to head into the bye week with a victory and a 6-1 record. With Ehlinger hurt, the bye week might have come at just the right time. But just how much did Texas need this bye week, and what do they need to do to fix before they head into Stillwater in a couple of weeks? Let's start with Zach.
Yeah, this was the perfect week for the bye week for Texas. They played a tough game against Baylor. It was really close. And for them, I think they just had to reflect on the season, relax, and remember that they had a great start. 6-0, a 6-game winning streak right now, which is really positive. And obviously we need Sam to get healthy. He's been great all year. But it's also great because we have a really tough stretch right now with 3 really tough games in a row. 2 on the road at Oklahoma State, in Stillwater, and in Lubbock for Tech. But we do play West Virginia at home, and I know West Virginia lost last week, but they are a tough team. Will Greer is an elite quarterback. So for Tom Herman, honestly, I think he just has to remind the team, take it one game at a time, and understand that even though we did get 6 wins and now we are a bowl-eligible team, we don't want to be in the Texas Bowl like we were last year. We want to be in these big games going against really high-quality teams.
Yeah, Texas, they've been taking that mentality of 1-0 every week. And so far, I mean, it's worked for Texas. They've gone 1-0 every week since losing to Maryland. Yes. Drew?
Yeah, well, as you said, this bye week couldn't have come at a better time. And not just for the obvious reasons, but this is a Texas team that was likely at the end of their rope. I mean, look, how many emotional late games have they played in a row? You got Kansas State, Oklahoma, Baylor. All these games took them to the wire. This is a team that needs rest. And obviously, because their starting quarterback is injured. And, of course, it gives Sam time to heal up. But in the event he can't go, Shane Buechele with 2 weeks of preparation is very different than Shane Buechele when you don't think he's going to be playing. This isn't some bum. This is a guy who started 18 games before. So this is going to be a good time for Tom Herman to give his team a little break and tell them, look, our season part 2 starts next week against Oklahoma State because they've got a 5-game stretch, and that's going to determine whether this is a good season or a mediocre season.
Yeah, you talk about those late-game heroics, those late-game stands. It's been a lot of physical games. That's really what it is. Texas, they've played physical, but they've also been on the other end of that physicality as well. And having Shane Buechele with a couple of weeks could help if Sam's not ready to go. Sean?
Yeah, obviously the whole quarterback situation is a great time to have a bye week. You have your starting quarterback hurt, and you want to give your backup quarterback a little more reps before going into a tough environment there in Stillwater against Oklahoma State. And then you got to follow that up with West Virginia next week. So this really is a good time to get everyone healthy, get everyone rested. It's nice in the middle of the season. And going forward, what this team really needs to improve on is beating teams that are really bad. Because right now, they're very good at beating very good teams. Against S&P top 30 teams, they have an average margin of victory of 13.7. Against bottom 80 teams, they have a margin of victory of 3. So that's not great, and that's really a Tom Herman MO going back to his days at U of H. So really kind of getting that better, getting up for the smaller games, not just the big games, is something that this Texas team is going to need going forward if they want to win the Big 12.
Yeah, Texas has had an issue of playing up and down to their competition. But you know what? I'm going with Drew. He's getting his first points on college Crossfire. It's just that it was a physically brutal stretch for the Longhorns coming into the bye week. They absolutely needed it, and they need Sam to come back healthy and strong against Oklahoma State. It's always a tough place to play. But let's move on to Texas basketball. They're starting up once again in preparation for the regular season, which starts on November 6th. The Longhorns are taking part in the Texas Tip-Off, and it's the first time for fans to take a look at the Longhorns before the season starts. There are plenty of newcomers to go along with the upperclassmen for Shaka Smart, but which player should fans keep an eye on this season? Let's start with Drew.
Well, you know, for me, it's clearly got to be Jericho Sims. I mean, Mo Bamba is leaving big shoes to fill, and the question isn't really if they can be filled. The problem is how big is the gap in production going to be? This is a Texas team that made it into the tournament last year by the skin of their teeth. Why did they do that? Because of defensive production. All right, in offense, they were 9th or 10th in all major categories in the Big 12. Defense, we're looking at more 2 or 3. So Sims is going to need to find a way to match that defensive production, to match those rebounds that we're going to be missing with Mo Bamba. And if he doesn't, and our defense is no longer a strength of this team, we're looking at maybe not an NIT berth, if you ask me.
Absolutely. Jericho Sims, he's going to be an integral part for Shaka Smart this year. He's got that bounce. He's that high-flying athlete. It's a matter of can he put it together, not get in foul trouble and things of that nature. Sean?
To me, the player to watch this upcoming Texas season is Matt Coleman. He came in, he was a freshman, the same class as Mo Bamba, but he kind of got overlooked. He was a top recruit as well, just not that high draft pick. That's kind of the reason he's coming back. And for him to be a more stabilizing presence as a point guard is going to be huge for this Texas team that's losing the guys that you mentioned. They're losing Bamba, losing even Eric Davis. That's a big loss. I mean, this wasn't that great of a team going in, and now, you know, you need guys to step up. You need an extra year with Shaka Smart to really get a solid point guard, because when it comes down to it, college basketball, a lot of it is just how reliable is your point guard. And I think if Matt Coleman can become that for Texas, they got a good shot.
And Shaka Smart, like, to run his system, he needs a reliable point guard. You look at it, when he had Isaiah Taylor, they were a 20-win team. And now when you have kind of shaky point guard play, don't do as well as they probably should. But we'll see if he can build on his freshman year and catapult into a much stronger sophomore year. Zach?
Yeah, for me, there's plenty of players to choose from here, but for me, Kerwin Roach is the #1 player to watch this year. Kerwin Roach, the 4-year senior, he's been here the longest. He was here when Rick Barnes was recruiting players, and for Kerwin, it's really important that he shows his senior leadership this year, because, I mean, this guy could have went to the NBA last year. He was testing the water. He was there. He's a high explosive player, and that's what people know him as. He's a very high athlete, and he really gets the job done on both ends of the ball. Really good defender. And the most important thing, though, is that over the past couple years, he's really improved his shooting. And in the Big 12, it's important to have guards who could shoot threes. And with Kerwin on there and you have Matt Coleman, I think Kerwin will really show off this year and have a great year.
No, I agree. Kerwin Roach shows that senior leadership. He's improved each and every year, so there's no doubt that he can make the jump again going into a senior season. So I'm going with Zach. You're getting the point. Kerwin Roach, he's an integral part for this team, and Shaka Smart needs him to play well. So going from one court to another, the Texas volleyball team hasn't exactly cruised through their schedule this year like they have in years past. 2 non-conference losses to Stanford, a couple of scares at Kansas State and TCU, and then Texas falls to unranked Kansas. The Longhorns just haven't looked as strong as they have in the past. So does this loss to Kansas worry you about whether or not Texas is an elite team this year? Let's start with Sean.
I think last time you were on, you asked me if volleyball is elite. I said I don't know what elite means, but I think that whatever elite is, I don't think this Texas team is that. I think they're still a really good team. They're still the team to beat in the Big 12 despite the loss to Kansas. Because if you look at their losses, Stanford's one of the best teams in the nation. They also lost to Wisconsin early this season. They're another top team. And you look around the Big 12, the only other teams on their schedule that are ranked, it's Baylor, who's 24, and Kansas, who's now 22. Obviously, they just beat Texas. But I think overall, Texas being a top 10 program that Jared Elliott's built, I think they still have enough firepower to win the Big 12. Just the national aspiration shouldn't be there this year.
Yeah, I think the expectation is that Texas will win the Big 12, but I think that they're just a tier below those what we call elite teams, the Stanfords and all the BYUs.
Yes.
Zach?
Yeah, I mean, Texas is still a top 10 team. I think we overreacted a little to the Kansas loss. Kansas is actually undefeated in the Big 12 right now. They're 13-4. So for Texas to lose to Kansas is not the biggest deal, but Kansas is not traditionally a powerhouse like Texas is. So when you do lose to Kansas, you start to worry. But Texas has 3 games out of their next 4 at home, so they can easily get back on track. And the Big 12 is definitely in their future to win it, and I think they can be a national powerhouse. And I think losses to Stanford will actually help them at the end of the year.
Yeah, you play teams like Stanford, you start to take things away from what Stanford does and maybe even apply it to your own game. Yeah. Drew?
I think everyone needs to calm down. Who did we lose to? We lost to a conference opponent, undefeated in conference, that is on an 8-game winning streak, all right? Good teams lose to other good teams. That happens, especially when you're going to Kansas to play the game. And Kansas historically is a team that has been embarrassed by Texas. They haven't had much success. In 54 games, Kansas has won about 6 of them. All right, so when you're a powerhouse like Texas, you're going to get every team's best shot, and occasionally you're going to lose a game, especially when you're playing another good team. Texas is still in the driver's seat. Texas can still accomplish everything they want to this year, and they can still be a national contender.
Yeah, I don't know if they can be a national contender this year. They don't have that star player. They don't have, because Lexi Sun, she transferred at the end of last season, so I'm not sure if they are the national power. I'm going with Sean. I think they are a top 10 team, but I don't think they're on tier 1 with all of the rest of those really, really elite teams who are going to compete for the national championship. So great debate, guys. When we return, we've got college football upsets, and in the NBA, the Wild Western Conference has gotten just a little bit wilder. Stick around. Welcome back to College Crossfire. Let's remind everybody at home of the score we have here. We have Zach with 1, Drew with 1, and Sean with 1. So it's all tied up. Still anybody's game. So let's move on. Week 7, for whatever reason, the past 2 years has been the week of upsets. In Week 7 of this year and last year, 4 top 10 teams lost. But let's just focus on this year's edition. Georgia, West Virginia, Washington, and Penn State were all in the top 10 and lost. And that doesn't include Miami, USC, or Auburn in the top 25, who also lost. But which was the biggest upset of the week in your mind? Let's start with Zach.
Yeah, so the biggest upset for me this week has to be Michigan State over Penn State, because with the other upsets in the top 10, you go on the road and if you go on the road and you're at Georgia and you're Georgia and you're Washington, you're expected possibly to lose. But even with West Virginia going against Iowa State, but with Michigan State, the Lewarke magic was there and hasn't been there the past 2 weeks. Before they lost to Northwestern, it was shocking. And with Penn State losing to Ohio State, you would think Penn State would come out and want to get a win at home against a team that really needed one, but they didn't show up. Trace McSorley played really poorly, and now Penn State's hopes at the college football playoffs are virtually over, as they now have to leap over Michigan State, Michigan, and Ohio State. So Penn State really lost out this week, and Michigan State now, with this win, can really make a run potentially in the Big Ten.
Yeah, no, you said it exactly. I mean, Penn State, they really needed this win after losing one game already in the Big Ten, and you have a Heisman Trophy contender in Trace McSorley at the beginning of the year, and for him to come out flat and arguably one of the biggest games left on their schedule, for him not to play well, that's pretty bad for Penn State. Drew?
Well, if you ask me, when we're dealing with Penn State and Michigan State, at least Michigan State has a culture of winning. I didn't find this too surprising, if anything. And, LSU, Georgia, 2 ranked teams. What was really surprising to me is West Virginia, in their year, this is meant to be their year, all the pieces, best offense in the conference, best quarterback in the conference. They can't play Iowa State and secure the W. And I know everyone sort of jokingly predicted Iowa State because they're spooky and because they seem to do this every year. But that's not real. That's just perception. So for West Virginia to actually go there and just not show up to lay an egg the way they did, I was really surprised. I was really disappointed, honestly. It shows me that this West Virginia team isn't too different from the other ones we've seen in years past.
Well, you have to remember that Iowa State, under Matt Campbell, they've been pretty strong with him as head coach. So, I mean, it's not too surprising to see them lose, but nonetheless, it's still an upset. Sean?
Yeah, with Matt Campbell, it's definitely not your grandfather's Iowa State team. But I think the most shocking upset, I guess, of this past week was the Michigan State-Penn State game, because of what Zach mentioned, that Ohio State already came in and beat Penn State at home. You would think that has some the Penn State would have some urgency after that. You saw the speech that Coach Franklin gave after that game, how the players are going to study harder, and it turns out all this studying doesn't really help you win football games. Just look at any other school in the nation. But Michigan State coming in, they haven't looked impressive all year. They weren't ranked going into the game, and so for them to go in, and important note that this game was in Happy Valley. Washington lost on the road, Georgia lost on the road, West Virginia lost on the road. This being a home game really makes that the most surprising to me.
Yeah, the fact that it was in Happy Valley makes it all that more impressive of a win for Michigan State. So, Sean, I'm going with you. You're getting the point because Penn State really needed that win, and they were at home. And so for them to lose there, it can't happen if they want to get to where they want to go. So it's October, and that means it's playoff baseball time. We're down to 4 teams. The Dodgers are up 3-2 on the Brewers in the NLCS, while the Astros look to even the ALCS with the Red Sox as we speak. Now, there are 2 really good matchups playing out, but only 2 teams can make the World Series. So who do you have playing in the World Series this year? Let's start with Drew.
Well, no surprise, I've got Los Angeles and Boston. When you're getting into the playoffs, you're dealing with a lot of teams that are very similar in how good they are. So when you're trying to split hairs and decide which teams you think are going to rise above the rest, I think you need to look at the teams that close games the best, the 2 teams with the best closing pitching. And if you want to go a step further, Houston is outscoring opponents 15 runs to 3 in extra innings during these playoffs. So, you're not going to have any easy games, and you're going to need to be able to close them out to be able to win late in those games. So for that reason, I'd have to go with these 2 teams.
Yeah, Dodgers and Red Sox. That's probably what most people are thinking. I mean, just because you have elite lineups and dominant closers, and pitching is what wins you championships in the MLB. Sean?
So cards on the table. When this question got sent to me, both series were tied. Milwaukee was up in the series, and I put Milwaukee to win the NL series, and they just lost 2 in a row to the Dodgers. But I still think they can come back and win this series. They still got Game 6 at home. That's a must-win. And then, hey, anything can happen in Game 7. We all know this. Same thing with the Astros. I also picked them going into this. Hasn't been a great week for your boy. But this is still a team that is battle-tested from last year's playoff team. You saw it last year in the ALCS. They're down 3-2 to the Yankees. They're not even down 3-2 yet. The game's still going on. They can still very easily win this game. So I think Brewers, Astros, and NL Central rematch.
I think that'd be an interesting matchup in the World Series just because they were former NL Central foes. And like A.J. Hinch said, manager of the Astros, it takes 4 games to win a series.
Yeah, with me, my matchup is going to be the Red Sox and the Brewers. And I know the Brewers are down 3-2 right now, but they do have these 2 games at home, and they were the best team in the NL this year. And the big thing with the Brewers is they also got valuable free agents. They got guys from the Kansas City Royals team who had success in the playoffs a couple years ago, who are valuable pieces. And then you get a Yelich also, who's most likely going to be the NL MVP this year. So with the Brewers, I think their hitting could really translate, and their home crowd will get up and excited because the Brewers haven't had too much success. And for the Red Sox, they have great hitting, JD Martinez, Mookie Betts, and the 2 fantastic pitchers. I mean, and then you have players that always step up for them in clutch moments. So those are the 2 teams I see going.
Yeah, the Brewers have the likely NL MVP, and the Red Sox probably the most complete lineup. But I'm going with Drew. Dodgers, Red Sox, pitching is what's going to win you the World Series. And when you have really, really good starters plus a lights-out closer, that's really what's going to win you there. So, Drew, you're getting the point. And so let's move on to the NBA. The NBA's Western Conference is arguably the toughest conference in all of sports. Now, with so many stars and powerhouse teams, it's always a slugfest in the playoffs. Now, the Warriors have dominated for the past few years, but that could change with LeBron James coming to the Lakers this season. So my question for y'all is, with LeBron, really any team becomes an instant contender. So are the Lakers a threat to win the West? Start with Sean.
Obviously, you already mentioned LeBron. He got a good chance. He's the best player in the league. But I still think it's too, some might say all time. But I think it's a little too early for this team. For this Lakers team, they're still depending on Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Kyle Kuzma, Josh Hart, guys that really haven't, guys that aren't veterans. They're still all in their early 20s. And then you look at the veterans they do have. It's JaVale McGee, not Swaggy P. He's somehow not on this team. You have Lance Stevenson, Rajon Rondo. I'm not sure if they have the fortitude to handle a playoff series against back-to-back champions in the Warriors or the Houston Rockets.
Yeah, it's just an interesting cast of characters. I don't know if they're quite ready just yet, but
a year away.
With LeBron, you never know. Zach?
Yeah, with the Lakers, I'm selling this team of being a team that can really make a run. They have a weird collection of players. They have the baby Lakers on one side and the meme team on the other side with McGee and Stevenson. And the West is just so loaded. With LeBron, they have a great chance of making the playoffs, maybe even winning a series. But can they really do something? I don't think this year. And LeBron usually struggles in the first year with his new team. So right now I don't see the Lakers as a necessarily top contender with the Warriors and the Rockets.
Yeah, it's going to take some time for LeBron to get acclimated with the way that these other players play, and so it may be another year before the Lakers actually contend.
Yeah, well, you know, with these LeBron James teams, they're never quite as successful as we think they're going to be. With the Heat, it was not 3, not 4, it was 2. With Cleveland, it was 1, and this is the worst team LeBron's been on in that time. And I think Lonzo is set to have a real sophomore slump this year. So I think LeBron is going to have a hurt back from carrying this team all the way to the playoffs, and I think the Western Conference Finals. But especially if Boogie Cousins comes back from that injury, comes back well, there is no one, not even the Eastern Conference All-Star team, who can touch the Warriors. Not this year.
Honestly, I have to disagree because I think Lonzo is probably going to have a much better sophomore year just because he has LeBron on his team. He doesn't have to be the de facto point guard the entire time for the Lakers. But you know what? I'm going with Zach. It's just that combination of talent, the baby Lakers, the meme team. I'm not sure that it's exactly going to work. So, Zach, you're getting the point to take us to break. So it's great debate, guys. We've got Rapid Fire up next. Stick around. Welcome back to College Crossfire. It's time for Rapid Fire, but let's first remind everybody of the score. Everybody's got 2 points. It's all tied up, so it's still anyone's game because in Rapid Fire, each question is worth 2 points. You can jump in at any time. So, like we said, Week 7 was a crazy week for college football. Fans might not know what to expect in the upcoming weeks. And so, of the current top 10 teams, which is the most likely to fall next and why?
I have Michigan actually falling. They're going on the road next week to Michigan State, who just beat Penn State. Why would Michigan State not have all this hype and be excited to play their in-state rival? So I think Michigan State could easily get it done. And like I said, I think they could start getting momentum. And everybody's really high on Michigan right now because of their Wisconsin win.
Yeah, people might not love to hear this here. I think it might be Texas having to play West Virginia in 2 weeks. That's going to be a rough one, definitely. I know it's at DKR. I know it's a big game and Tom Herman, whatever, but that's still a tough game. I don't think this team is a top 7 quality team. I think they're more of, the 12 to 15 range. They're a little out ahead of their skis right now. So I got Texas being the next one to fall.
They do have a bye, though, so.
Oh, yeah, I guess.
There's a little bit of time.
The math might.
I'm a little worried for Georgia. I mean, look, the SEC East isn't the punching bag we're used to it being. And I think the reason Georgia has been ranked so high all year was really poll momentum. I think we saw Georgia be excellent last year, and I think it might be 2 things. Tougher SEC West, and Georgia might be a little worse than we know.
Yeah, Georgia does look vulnerable, but I'm going with Michigan. Michigan, they've kind of had times of struggling with under Jim Harbaugh, so I mean, I think Michigan State could really pull it off. So it's final rapid fire of the night. This one's going to be worth 3 points, so anybody can win.
Oh, thank God.
From football to football, European football that is, there have been reports that the MLS and La Liga MX, Mexico's football league, could merge after the World Cup in North America. The question is, what other sports leagues should merge to create either a new sport or a new league?
So I'm going to stick with soccer here on this one, and I think that they have the Champions League already, and it's really just a tournament of all the teams that win their thing. Just make that the league. It's always the same teams anyway. You might get one new team here and there. Just make the Champions League the actual league. Now with travel, especially in Europe, traveling in Europe's no big deal. Believe me, I've been there. Not to brag. But I think the Champions League is the most realistic one, and it has the most even quality.
Just make it the only league.
I think I would like to see the NBA and the NFL form a sort of hybrid league where they still play both sports. And here's why. I have always been suspicious that LeBron James could be an elite safety in the NFL. And also, I would like to mandate when they're playing basketball, 1 punter or kicker on the court at all times. I would love to see these guys get crossed by, real athletes, except for Justin Tucker. Spurs need depth, and he can provide it.
Yeah, for me, despite the talent issue, I think the NFL and the CFL, they can merge. And the big thing there is because since Canada is just right next to the United States, I think it would be an easy merger. Travel wouldn't be that big of an issue. And there could be some way of expansion teams getting better players, getting better players out of college. And by the end of a couple years, potentially that both leagues and teams could start to get even.
I mean, and you could you start expanding up there.
Exactly.
And you just more talent.
A new
overall.
market.
It's a new market. So you know what, Zach? You're getting the win. You're getting the points.
Yeah.
So don't have time for FaceTime, but for everybody at home, We'll have Zach's FaceTime on Facebook Live, so stick around after the show for that. So congratulations to our winner, Zach. Make sure to tune in on Mondays at 9:30 for College Press Box to catch up on the latest sports news on the 40 Acres, and tune in with us next Wednesday at 9 o'clock for more College Crossfire. Don't forget to follow at TSTV Sports on social media. And for all the panelists and everyone in studio and master control, I'm Jonathan Polasek. Have a wonderful evening.